This is Matt Rosen, and this is The Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of The Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. I'm your host, Matt Rosen. Today on the show, we've got a good friend and special guest, Ollie Chandhok. He's the president and publisher of the Dallas Business Journal. This guy's awesome. Somehow he finds the time to send me 2 emails every day to let me know what's going on with Dallas. Welcome to the show.
Matt, thank you very much. I like to stay busy, I guess.
Yeah, twice a day. It's amazing. Even on Sunday nights, I hear from you. Well, we've known each other a long time. In fact, you intrused me to the studio that we're doing this here.
Yeah. I do remember that.
Which is awesome.
I was sitting in that chair that time.
Yeah, I know. You're in the hot seat now. Well, it's great to have you on. So we'll be talking about grit today, but to get started, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm currently the president and publisher of the Dallas Business Journal. We, if you don't already know, American City Business Journals is in 44 cities across the country. We're hyper local. We cover local business news. Not only do we cover it, we're actively involved in the community. We do big events, recognition-based events, awards programs. And of course, just our people are out in the community. So good team of reporters here in Dallas, total of about 25 folks that are super immersed in the community. And I lead the charge. So I'm not aggressively involved in any one part of the business. I'm sort of a jack of all trades, and a little bit in the newsroom, a little bit in the advertising side, and a little bit in events. So,
you guys do a lot of great stuff around Dallas. The best places to work, the Women in Tech, CEO Awards. Do a great job of recognizing leaders all over and letting us know what's going on in the community.
Yeah, and in fact, we just last night had our Women in Business cocktail reception. The main event's later on, about a month from now. But last night was just an opportunity for each of the honorees to meet each other, get to know each other, and those are actually my favorite events that we do. They're sort of private, but it allows very, very notable business leaders to meet each other in person, and we love that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you. Let's talk about a little bit about your upbringing. You grew up thinking, I want to run a newspaper one day?
Absolutely not. Not at all. Not at all. I don't know how I got here. So I'll start from the top. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
Normal childhood. My parents, dad was a realtor, mom worked for IBM, and sort of spent most of my life in Toronto. I started playing golf, and I got reasonably okay, not so much anymore, but I got okay, and I got offered a couple golf scholarships, and that made my way down to Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to Queen's University in Charlotte. I tell people here in Dallas about it. It's a lot like SMU, very small private school, right in Myers Park, which almost looks like Highland Park. So was there for 4 years. I learned to sell through a company called State Industrial Products, and we sold industrial supply. So I tell people nuts and bolts. I actually sold nuts and bolts to manufacturing facilities, truck shops, those kind of places.
Yeah.
And it was challenging, but it was also a great learning experience. So imagine trying to sell drill bits to a guy that is underneath a truck frame, welding it together. Yeah. That was the world I was in, and did it for 8 years. At the 8-year mark, I sort of worked my way up and was managing the Southeast. And I met the publisher of the Charlotte Business Journal. Didn't know much about what the Business Journal was at the time, but we hit it off, and she hired me, and she hired me to help grow our readership in Charlotte. And the concept was to do education-based marketing. So I would do a seminar for 20 or 30 people that we invited to the office and show them how to find sales leads in the print business. Back then it was print.
Yeah.
And how do you find
sales?
Yeah. It was sort of fledgling digital, but this was 2008.
Okay.
So the print edition show people how to find sales leads. And at the end of the day, they had to buy a subscription in order to make it work. And so we, at one point in time, were selling more subscriptions than the website was. So this caught on. It went nationwide. All the business journals did it. That sort of was my start, my entry point into the business journal. So I'm not a journalist by trade. I'm not an advertising person by trade. I sort of sit in this middle segment we call audience development. After that, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to be the publisher in Greensboro, North Carolina."
Okay.
And the same job that I have today, just a smaller market, smaller business, and was there for 4 years. And then now, hard to believe, but I've been here in Dallas almost 7 years now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I kind of got company started and you got to running the paper around the same time.
I think we met 6.5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, no, that's cool. So nuts and bolts to running a newspaper. So tell us a little bit about the sales experiences. I mean, what was that like? What did you have to go through to be successful in that business?
Yeah, it was about as rudimentary as it gets back in the industrial supply days.
Yeah.
I mean, back then I was I worked out of my car. So the office was in Cleveland, Ohio. So you worked out of your house. And we called on truck shops and manufacturing plants. And it was very, I'll just say old school, where you tried to get by the physical gatekeeper and go to the back of the factory and find the maintenance guys and you strike up a conversation with them face to face. There was no text. I think I had a cell phone, but there was no text and not really any email. So it was physically going to find the right person, dog and pony, showing them what we had and sort of uncovering needs that they had. And really trying to match it up. So I'm grateful for that time because I really learned the sort of brute of selling in a very 101 type of world. I'll say it's a lot easier to talk advertising with a CEO today sitting in a boardroom than it is in the back shop of a maintenance facility selling, with essentially a blue collar group trying to sell them supplies. So learning to do that helps today, not even selling, but really just in conversation and associating with different people from different backgrounds. It's really set the stage for me to do various things. My role in that world, after a few years, I was promoted into a management role. And so we would host staff meetings and team group meetings, those sort of things. And that's really where I got comfortable in front of a room, learning how to operate a meeting, a really small level of public speaking. Towards the tail end of that 8 or 9 years, it was tough. But I also am grateful for that time because I learned some of the hardest lessons that you could learn.
Yeah. Are there some of those you could share? Was it overcoming public speaking? They say more people are scared of public speaking than they are of dying.
Yeah. So I think back and I remember running those sort of staff meetings and thinking how terrible I was at it. Right now, this is 25 years ago now, and I can think to when I entered the business journal community. I was specifically hired to do workshops. So stand in front of a room of 25 people and deliver an effective presentation, effective enough to where at the end they would feel like taking out their wallet and subscribing. Sure. I remember the first time I did it, I had a great boss. She made me actually practice and role play. And the first time I did it was actually in my interview process to get the job.
Okay.
That was the single hardest public speaking I've ever had to do. And since, I've interviewed CEOs, Fortune 500 companies, senators, been on television a bunch of times, but the first one that I had to do was in my job interview. That was torture. Because if you think about it, what she put in the room, the entire staff of the Charlotte Business Journal, the editor-in-chief included, and I knew nothing really about the Business Journal. Yeah,
you're selling nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I'm selling nuts and bolts. So my wife gave me a copy of the Charlotte Business Journal. I immersed myself in that one copy. And really just told some stories about my friends using this content. I told some story. There was on the front cover, this is funny, McKesson's based here in Irving. The front cover was an article about McKesson. And I had a friend who sold box trucks to McKesson. And I told the story of how my friend Dale could use this content to learn that, hey, McKesson has some transition going on. Now is the proper time for you to call on them. And I told that story in front of the room, including the editor, Robert Morris, and I was nervous as hell. And somehow I got it all out, essentially told some stories that felt good. They loved it. They loved it because it was a little more engaging than step-by-step, page 1, page 2, page 3 sort of thing. It was really bringing it to life. So I think that translates in selling conversations. I think you want to bring your conversation to life by telling stories or past experiences, those sort of things.
Yeah, storytelling is so compelling and so needed in this day and age. And heck, before we had written down words, that's how people passed on information with stories. It's a lot easier for people to remember than steps or facts. So it sounds like you became a master of that very early.
It was what happened to me was I started to realize exactly that the stories were effective. And so I just paid closer attention to my normal life.
Yeah.
There was a story that when I first was hired by the Charlotte Business Journal, everybody knows the People on the Move that we put in our print edition and on the website. So the CBJ put me in People on the Move. And about a week later, I get a print, like an envelope. Somebody mailed me an envelope and I had only been there a week, right? And there's a handwritten front of it. My name's handwritten. Yeah. And I'm thinking, who is sending me mail? Because nobody even knows that I work here yet, right? and so I open up the letter, and it is a letter, essentially a form letter where you just change the name and copy the rest of it. And it was from a guy named Rich Barker, and it said something to the effect of, "Dear Ollie, congratulations on your new job. Now that you have a bigger paycheck, you should consider buying a new Chrysler Jeep Dodge." and it was Rich Barker. His nickname was Wrangler Rich, and he sold cars. And he put his business card in there, and it dawned on me that this is a real life interaction that I had. So I just kept telling that story about Wrangler Rich Barker.
Did you end up with a Jeep Wrangler?
I did not buy one, but he did become a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
He actually showed up at one of the seminars, and he was in the back of the room, and he didn't tell me he was there till after the seminar. So it was effective in his world to really just connect with people to start. So I would just tell that story, and people started thinking, man, I should do that for my landscaping business, or I'm an accountant, I can do that to build my client base. Whatever it is, there's just interesting ways to tell stories, but interesting ways to connect with people.
No, very cool. So we're on the grit mindset. So the question I ask every guest is, what does grit mean to you, either personally or professionally?
Yeah, grit, man, that's a big question. Grit is toughness. It's dedication. I think it is. I think grit, all of us are born with a certain level of grit. I think experience, challenges, failures all help build and grow that level of grit that you have available. I think awareness is a big part of it. Everybody faces some level of challenge. I think when you're in the moment, when you're dealing with the challenge, if you can appreciate it instead of just sort of collapsing, you can learn something from it, right? And I think that helps establish a higher level of grit. But essentially, to answer the question directly, grit is the ability, to me, it's the ability to deal with the challenge and how you can emerge from that and hopefully be more successful.
Yeah, well, being that you're a storyteller, can you share with us a story of where you had to dig deep and leveraged your grit to get through a situation, whether it was early in life, here later in your professional career, whatever you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to fast forward to about 3 years ago.
Okay.
This is here in Dallas. So post-COVID, so we had sort of emerged from the challenges of the COVID era.
Try to forget those.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing that it's already been almost 6 years.
No kidding.
So I essentially only have 3 direct reports. So I have the editor-in-chief, I have the events director, and I have our advertising director, and they have their teams. And so I try to stay in that space where I work with those 3 for, not to get too into the weeds, but a variety of different circumstances. In 2020, late 22, early 23, I had all 3 of those positions open. It wasn't the best scenario, and it's not ideal, and I don't know if it's ever happened before at a business journal. It was just sort of a sequence of events that led to me being without all 3 department heads. Now, I could transition into the advertising space because I spent a little bit of time doing that. So the first one to leave was the events director, and she left because of some internal strife with another team member. She moved on, and it wasn't that surprising. And essentially, I was sort of, I'll just full disclosure, was happy to see her go, and she just wasn't the most effective at the time. So she walked out the door. Now, I had to quickly learn how to deal with hotels, venues, caterers. I've never done that before.
Became an event planner overnight.
I see the bottom line of an event, and I see the expense line, but I never saw the details.
Yeah, a lot goes into it.
And it is an ordeal. It's an ordeal. Event directors are champions for what they do. It's a very difficult gig, and so I picked it up pretty quickly, but had to, it takes up all your time. And then immediately within a month, the ad director we had to move on. We parted ways, and it was just challenging in terms of some of the environmental things that were happening in the office, and so we parted ways there. Now, keep in mind, I'm currently the events director. I'm still the publisher that has to operate, go on stage, and do all of the things that we do at the Business Journal. So I'm event director, and then I took over the ad department, and that was very intentional, and I'm familiar with that because I had done it before. And I said to the ad team, I'm going to be your boss for at least 3 months, just to let the dust settle and sort of get things back in order. So I had planned on taking over that department for some time. I spent the time trying to find a new events director. We have a terrific one that joined us 2 years ago, spectacular, Kelsey.
Yeah.
I think you know Kelsey.
She's great.
She's spectacular. She's a citizen of Dallas, really involved, the whole thing, as good as it gets. I wouldn't be surprised to see her move up in our world very soon, quite frankly. So she solidified that events business. I'm now running the ad team, and then our editor-in-chief, who we love, he was terrific, Jeff. He came to me and said, hey, I've got an opportunity that I can't pass up. And I said, Jeff, you have to take that. You can take care of your family. I totally understand. And Jeff moved on. I do not know how to be an editor-in-chief. I don't know how to hire reporters, quite frankly. But what I heard was we had talent across the country and other cities. And so, long story short, Will Anderson emerged. He was the managing editor at the Austin Business Journal, south of here. Will and I had several conversations, and he took over the Dallas Business Journal as the editor-in-chief right at about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. Will had 5 open reporter spots to fill. He picked his people. He hired the right folks. Tons of stability. There hasn't been much turnover at all. And if there has been, I'm thinking of one, it was to go back to school. So really, they've really stabilized the group. And then, so coming back to the advertising director piece, I think everybody knows Randy Kazmersky.
Yep.
Randy emerged, great guy. He was invited. He spent some time at the Morning News, D-Custom. He sort of fit the role perfectly. Of most importance about Randy, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And it was the top priority for me was to find a nice person that had the tools. Randy's the kind of guy that wakes up at 4 a.m., jumps out of bed, goes to the gym, and he's super excited all day until he goes to bed at 9 p.m. So Randy's terrific. And so all that said and done, there was a moment in time there where I didn't sleep for weeks at a time, heavily stressed out, all kinds of challenges in terms of like my physical well-being, because I was essentially not sleeping and handling all 3 departments at the same time.
Well, it sounds like you were down to a skeleton crew.
Skeleton crew. We have some veteran. I don't want to neglect our veterans. We have some veterans on the team that really held it together and sort of continued to produce throughout that. But I honestly can't think of a tougher time professionally than that window of about, it was 6 to 7 months of just, I was fully immersed, 20 hours a day sort of environment. And here we sit now where these 3 they run the show. I just show up for events.
So how do you think you got through that, mentally and physically?
This is going to sound so cliche. You've heard all the athletes say it. It's one day at a time. It was a lot of what is right in front of me, which is not the greatest environment to be in. I could not be visionary. I could not think further ahead, but I was just so bogged down in the individual tasks. But at that point, in that environment, that's all I could do was really take one step at a time and just handle the task at hand. So there was a bit of increased focus, of course, but I had to prioritize, right? I had to sort of figure out what task has to be happening first, who needs me the most in what department at that point in time. So to sound so cliche, no better answer, but really it is one step at a time, and that's sort of how it worked. Kelsey joining as the first department head to really join DBJ in this world, she solidified a lot of things right off the bat. I'm grateful to her for all the things she's done beyond events. As you know, it's not just events. She really does a lot for advertising. She does a lot for the newsroom. And so she really solidified and righted the ship. And then I was able to add Will and Randy to really, really help us take off.
Yeah. Well, that's challenging. 20-hour days, no sleep.
It's not good for you.
I didn't notice it, but maybe I didn't see it for a little while.
That's when I disappeared. I missed a lot of board meetings from boards that I'm on, and they all understood and were super kind. But it was, I was absentee for a while.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got the organization in a much better place now.
Yeah.
So going through that, how did you instill, a sense of grit within your team, or how do you even do that today?
Yeah, I mean, so across the board, especially our veterans, they were part of that. They witnessed it. They agreed. They agreed to sort of come along for the ride. They were convicted to our mission, right?
Yeah.
To inform and connect is what we want to do.
Yeah.
They continued to sort of plug holes that I couldn't do all myself. And so with the seasoned veterans on our team, they've done it firsthand, right? They've sort of been there, and we reflect every now and then and sort of solidify that level of grit that they earned. With the newer folks, we've just sort of established proper process, and this sounds probably a little like business school type stuff, but I think if they have stability behind the scenes in terms of function, process, organization, even. It prepares them for challenges. It prepares them for failures, right? And I know previously we were a little bit loose in that regard. And when challenges arise, you're just not prepared. You're just not ready to deal with it. And so giving them tools and just structure has made it great for challenging environments. I know that our newsroom, when Will first got here, one of the things that he experienced was we had a great hire, terrific young reporter that was sort of a rising star. And for Will, it was one of his first hires that he had made, and for good reason. The reporter said, hey, I'm ready for a change. I want to do something different. I'm not feeling the whole local business thing. And he took a different gig in sort of a slower paced world, I'll say. Will took that to heart. It was really difficult for him to deal with because it was a guy that he sort of invested time, but also his emotionally invested in his development. And we as leaders, we've all lost somebody that we love on some level. And he left, and Will and I talked a lot about it during that process. And he was just had to bear down and sort of he really took his time in finding the next person that fit that role really well. But I'm sure if you talk to Will, he'll tell you that was one of his sort of opportunities to learn grit and develop it, and he's emerged really well.
No, that's awesome. Will's a good guy. I've only met him once or twice, but it sounds like you built a great team. What do you see as the biggest challenges going forward? I mean, I'm in the tech business, so curious from being in the news business, like what are the, I don't want to say hardships, but the opportunities, challenges, however you want to look at them, that you got to overcome daily?
Yeah, so staying in tech, we were talking about this offline.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think at ACBJ as a whole, all the business journals nationwide, we haven't quite figured out how to maximize the benefits of AI, right?
Yeah.
On some level, all of us use it to a degree in various aspects of our day to day, but we're sort of sitting tight and waiting for some direction from our leadership group, and that's not to take away from them. I'm sure they're immersed in ideas, but I think one of the major challenges in our world, and probably everybody's, is to keep up with the pace at which AI is developing and adopt. Like how do we adopt it in our world?
Yeah.
So there's some mystery there, right? There's some uncertainty. We don't know how to use it, use it effectively. So I think that has always been, or not always. It's been 4, 5, 6 years. It's been more recent, and sort of how do we engage with some of the technology that's emerging? Yeah,
I think a lot of us are still trying to figure that out. In fact, that's what we're doing for a living.
You're the pro, right?
Helping companies figure out how are we going to leverage this? How does it fit in our workflows? How do we have it not displace jobs, but make people better at what they do? And I've got a saying I say in the AI interviews I do, it's not AI that's coming for your job, but someone using AI. So it's those that figure it out and disrupt themselves first.
It's funny you say it that way. Like our front cover of our print edition right now is talking about, I forget the exact phrasing of this, but it was, is AI coming for your job? Which essentially it's not, but the deeper dive, if you look at the Business Journal this week, it's timely.
I'll definitely check it out. In fact, it's probably in my email box.
It's my email.
No, that's awesome. You talked about, sitting on boards, being involved in the community. I'd be curious, like any stories of grit, inspiring stories you can share, maybe without implicating the innocent, that you've been involved in, or people you're proud of. Be curious to hear.
I talk a lot about. I'll go back to, again, I'm jumping across timelines here, but back in my day in Charlotte, when I was learning the business and I worked for the Charlotte Biz Journal, I didn't know how important it was to engage in the community in terms of loosely the term networking, right? I think some people don't use that, right? It really is essentially making friends. I didn't appreciate it. But when I got to the CBJ, my boss that I referenced earlier, she said, you need to get plugged into the community.
Yeah.
And so I did. And so I went to all kinds of different events, shook hands, met a few folks, drank a few beers. It was fun on some level.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, what happened was I started to see the same people every time, right? Which was not a bad thing because you have your friends that you've sort of spent some time with at various programs. And then I started getting, somebody invited me to be on the board of the Charlotte Chamber Young Professionals. Okay. I was a young professional at one point. It was a long time ago.
We were all young ones.
Yeah, 2009 or something, right? I was a young professional, and somebody said, you should sign up for the board or apply, and I did, and I was voted in, and so I was on the board of the Young Professionals in Charlotte. It was great. It was awesome. I was part of a more exclusive group, and really again learned a lot about these, it sounds so petty, but like these meetings that people have and how boards work and the impact that boards can have in terms of advocacy. And we're not getting paid. It's sort of like, how can we have influence over the business community in Charlotte? Right. After 2 years of that, I got pegged to be the chair of the board. And to me, my first initial thought was, who, me? Like, I'm certainly not ready for this. And I bounced it back and forth, right? And I said, I don't want to do it. I don't know if it's the right thing. And for everybody that knows how boards work, you have to be the chair-elect first for a year, and then you move into the chair spot. Right. I was going to turn it down. And part of something inside of me said, hey, you don't know how to do this, but the only way you're going to know how to do it is to actually accept the role and figure it out. So in my mind, there was a level of grit there that emerged naturally in me, that told me, you face it head on and learn how to do this. And so I took over. So I did the chair-elect for a year, and then rolled into the chair spot. And I remember the first meeting, and you're the guy. There's no gavel, but you're the guy with the gavel, right? And I was just copying what the previous guy did. And after monthly meetings, after like 3 or 4, I said, I can do this. Yeah. And I remember reflecting back to a year and 4 months prior, where I was like, I don't want to do this. Why would I do this? It's extra work and the whole thing. But again, some level of grit emerged there at one point and said, you can do it. And I look back, periodically now, I don't know how many years later, like 15 years later, we have a meeting at the Business Journal. I run the meeting. Everything's totally fine. And it's second nature now. And I think back to that time. If I didn't take that on, I don't know if I'd be where I'm at today.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. As we're kind of wrapping things up here, you have the ability to speak with lots of different business leaders and across Dallas, all walks of life. What would you share with our listeners? Maybe some common themes or things you've learned that you could share? Yeah, well, what I want to share specifically about Dallas, right? Yeah. Dallas, Fort Worth, the whole region. It's everything it's cracked up to be. Yeah. I am so super proud of this region. I'm super grateful to be here. Yeah. I'll give you sort of a mild story, right? Great. Not a mild story, but a story. As you would expect, we're part of the Business Journal family, 44 business journals. We are very competitive, right? Yeah. Behind closed doors, we're very competitive in all aspects, in terms of visits, conversions, revenue, circulation, all of it. We are the Dallas Business Journal is right now, in terms of revenue, the 5th largest business journal in the company. The budget is the 5th largest for 2025. We were not always there, right? And so to move up gradually and sustainably has been something that we've been very proud of. But what my buddies say to me in all the other cities, they say, number one is Houston, by the way. So that's always a city down 45. Yeah, it's always a target for it. We're friends, but we're not. Yeah. So what my buddies in the other markets always say is, hey, you know what? You guys are killing it. You're doing great. But you're in Dallas, and it's sort of it's a compliment, but it's also like a takeaway, and it's also like there's expectation being in such a robust business community. Yeah, and I walk away from that thinking, that's your problem that you're not here, mm-hmm. and secondly, great, we're in the right place. We're in the right place to do business. Yes, we're doing well, and yes, it certainly is part of this like lively, robust business community. But it's great to hear from those folks when they're sort of chip on their shoulder and they're a little upset and they say, you're lucky, you're in Dallas.
And that's what I just want to share. It's a common thread for many reasons, right? Like emerging tech industry, of course, biotech and life sciences is emerging. We still have, I think our largest employment base is in aviation. Think about healthcare around here. And of course, the big two, right? Finance. This is Y'all Street and real estate. We have space and spectacular Class A space, all of it.
Yeah.
So when one is off, the other one emerges. It's sort of this community that can weather the storm. And then we have sort of the cultural stuff that really is cool about, we are still in Texas, right?
Yeah.
And you hear about some of the things happening in Fort Worth. You hear about diversity up north in Collin County. You hear about big opportunity in the southern sector of Dallas. So we still have room to grow in such a gigantic place that's already thriving. It's awesome.
It's amazing. I think this place has doubled since I moved here. It really is a great place to be, to start a business, to have a family. It's not physically the prettiest place, but from business and people, it's a great place to be.
It's a little hot sometimes, but otherwise
today.
You stay in the AC, you're good.
Yeah, we have good AC. Well, man, it's been awesome having you on the show. Is there anything that we didn't cover, or any closing thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, the big closing thought for me, and I try to share this often, is authenticity has served me very well, right? I think you know this, whether I'm emceeing an event on stage or doing a podcast or even in the office, I'm the same guy. I'm me. It's who I am, and I think I tell this to my team. Be yourself. Be yourself in the decisions you make. Be yourself in the work you do. It's really difficult to pretend you're somebody else and maintain that throughout the course of whatever your life. So, I just think authenticity is key to success, regardless of what we're talking about. It's a life lesson beyond just business.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, hey, appreciate you coming on the show and us swapping seats. It's great. It's great having you. Thanks for sharing your story and your insights. A lot for our listeners to take away. For those of you out there listening, I'll post Ollie's LinkedIn. And if you're not a reader of the Dallas Business Journal, you absolutely need to be. We'll send you an email twice a week, twice a day. Sorry, it's great. What's going on in town. So for all our listeners out there, this is Matt Rosen signing off. Stay gritty.